saranang gacchami. Dhammam saranang gacchami. Sangham saranang gacchami. Friends, tonight we are going to study and discuss the 5 aggregates and 5 aggregates affected by clinging. These are two things. 5 aggregates and 5 aggregates affected by clinging. The central teaching of the Buddha is the 4 noble truths. 4 noble truths is based on unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. When the Buddha explained what the dukkha is, what unsatisfactoriness is, in his maiden discourse, first discourse, Buddha very clearly said, 5 aggregates affected by clinging is unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. So dukkha means unsatisfactoriness because we cling to 5 aggregates. Buddha has never said that 5 aggregates are dukkha, unsatisfactory, but 5 aggregates affected by clinging is unsatisfactory. The whole teaching of the Buddha, in order to understand the teaching of the Buddha, we all have to understand 5 aggregates and 5 aggregates affected by clinging. If we misunderstand these 5 aggregates, we cannot understand the very words of the Buddha, very teachings of the Buddha. Like the 4 noble truths, the dependent origination, the 3 characteristics of existence, then what to call karma, and the complete cessation, remainderless cessation of karma. We cannot understand this because all these are connected to 5 aggregates. If you realize 5 aggregates, if you understand 5 aggregates clearly, you can understand this Dhamma through 5 aggregates. Whenever we talk about 5 aggregates, some people think the first one, form aggregate. Form aggregate, some people think that form means this body, Panchaskandha. That is how they say that we leave behind these 5 aggregates and go after our death. That is what some people say, which is wrong. 5 aggregates, friends, are not physical but mental. So in order to understand 5 aggregates and 5 aggregates affected by clinging, tonight we are going to discuss, understand 6 different, some quotations from 6 different discourses of the Buddha. These are from early discourses. The first one is from the discourse on setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma. That is Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Buddha's maiden discourse, first discourse, where the Buddha said, now this bhikkhus is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering, union with what is displeasing is suffering, separation from what is pleasing is suffering, not to get what one wants is suffering. In brief, here is the point. In brief means all these together. When you summarized all these, in brief, Buddha said, in brief, if you put them together, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging affected, subject means affected, subject to clinging are suffering. In Pali, the Buddha said, Sankhitena panchupadanakkhandha dukkha. Now let's understand 5 aggregates first. These are the 5 aggregates. Form aggregate. Form aggregate means 4 elements and or they are derivatives. Then feeling aggregate, the second. Perception aggregate, third. Volitional formation aggregate, the fourth. And consciousness aggregate is the fifth one. Those are the 5 aggregates. All beings, friends, all beings have 5 aggregates. If we take this body as the form aggregate, the problem is only humans and animals have this body, physicality. All other beings, they have 5 aggregates, but their form is not physical but mental. First, we have to understand that. Now, in the aggregate discourse, this is from the connected discourses of the Buddha. Buddha, addressing the monks, said the difference between 5 aggregates and 5 aggregates affected by clinging. Bhikkhus, I quote, Bhikkhus, I will teach you the 5 aggregates and the 5 aggregates affected by clinging. Listen to that. And what bhikkhus are the 5 aggregates? Whatever kind of form there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near. These are different types of forms. All these are mental. This is called the form aggregate. Form aggregate. Whatever kind of feeling there is, this is called feeling aggregate. Whatever kind of perception there is, this is called the perception aggregate. Whatever kind of volitional formations there are, these are called the volitional formation aggregates. Whatever kind of consciousness there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near. This is called the consciousness aggregate. These bhikkhus are called the 5 aggregates. Those are 5 aggregates. They are simply aggregates. Those are not affected by clinging. And what bhikkhus are the 5 aggregates affected by clinging? Whatever kind of form there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, that is tainted. That is the problem. Tainted. That can be clung to. This is called the form aggregate subject to clinging. Not only form, then whatever kind of feeling there is, that is tainted, that can be clung to. This is called the feeling aggregate subject to clinging. Whatever kind of perception there is, that is tainted, that can be clung to. This is called the perception aggregate subject to clinging. Whatever kind of volitional formations there are that are tainted, that can be clung to, these are called the volitional formation aggregate subject to clinging. Whatever kind of consciousness there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, that is tainted, that can be clung to. This is called the consciousness aggregate subject to clinging. These bhikkhus are called the 5 aggregates subject to clinging. That is the difference between 5 aggregates and 5 aggregates affected by clinging. Now we come to another discourse which was delivered by Venerable Sariputta. This is the simile of the footprints of the elephant. Venerable Sariputta says, friends, just as when a space is enclosed by timber and creepers, grass and clay, it comes to be termed house. That is how you call a house. So too, when a space is enclosed by bones and sinews, flesh and skin, it comes to be termed material form. That is material form. This is material form, because we have to understand the form. This has been mistaken by many. Even translations, we have mistranslations. It is because of that we cannot experience the Dhamma. We cannot experience the teachings of the Buddha. We cannot understand the teaching of the Buddha. That is why, as one of my friends who meet here, he wanted me to talk about 5 aggregates tonight. As we all discussed 6 sense bases the other day, last day, tonight he wanted me to speak on this subject, 5 aggregates. That's why we selected these different discourses. So now, the Venerable Sariputta explained further, if friends, internally the eye is intact, but no external forms come into its range. Please understand this clearly. And there is no corresponding conscience engagement, then there is no manifestation of the corresponding class of consciousness. That is one thing to be understood. We can discuss this later if you want further explanations. If internally the eye is intact and external forms come into its range, now external objects has come, but there is no corresponding conscious engagement, then there is no manifestation of the corresponding class of consciousness. There are also no consciousness. But when internally the eye is intact and external forms come into its range and there is the corresponding conscious engagement, then there is the manifestation of the corresponding class of consciousness. That means consciousness. In order to consciousness to arise, there should be other factors, other concomitant factors in function. Otherwise, no arising of consciousness. Then, the form. Now, please understand this clearly. The form in what has thus come to be is included in the form aggregate. So where the form aggregates came to be? Here in the I. Came to be, that's included in the form aggregate affected by clinging. The feeling in what has thus come to be is included in the feeling aggregate affected by clinging. The perception in what has thus come to be is included in the perception aggregate affected by clinging. The formations in what has thus come to be are included in the formation aggregates affected by clinging. The consciousness in what has thus come to be is included in the consciousness aggregate affected by clinging. So where are the 5 aggregates? This is not the 5 aggregates. Body is not the 5 aggregates. That is called body. Certain times, certain occasions, it is true that term, form, rupa can be used to this body also. But in order to practice the Dhamma, because Buddhism is based on the mind, not on the body. As I said, body, only humans and animals have bodies. No devas, no bodies for devas, no bodies for brahmas, but they all have 5 aggregates. Okay, now further, this indeed is how there comes to be the inclusion, gathering and amassing of things into these 5 aggregates affected by clinging. Now, this has been said by the Blessed One who sees dependent origination, sees the Dhamma. One who sees the Dhamma sees dependent origination. So, affected by clinging, 5 aggregates affected by clinging have dependently arisen. So, dependent origination is not on the whiteboard, not on the screen, but inside. Inside means not in the heart. You can't find dependent origination in the heart or the belly. It is all these Dhamma, the 4 noble truths, the dependent origination, 3 characteristics of existence, all these are friends in the 6 sense bases. 6 sense bases: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. I say this with clear understanding. With my own experience I say this, not from the books. So desire includes including indulgence, desire, indulgence, inclination, and holding based on these 5 aggregates affected by clinging is the origin of suffering. The removal of desire and lust, the abandonment of desire and lust for these 5 aggregates affected by clinging is the cessation of suffering. See, the rising and perishing both are there within the 6 sense bases. Now we come to another discourse, which is the great discourse on the establishments of mindfulness, where the Buddha taught us how this craving arises and how it ceases. Referring to the arising of craving, Buddha says in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, when this craving arises, bhikkhus, where does it arise? When it settles down, where does it settle? Whatever in the world has a pleasant form and agreeable form, pleasant and agreeable form, It is here that this craving arises when it arises. It is here that it settles when it settles down. And what in the world has a pleasant form and agreeable form? In this world means, friends, world means not the external world, outer world, this physical world, but internal world within us. Buddha talk about the world. Whenever the Buddha referred the world, basically referring to an individual. Buddha has talked about other world systems, thousands world system, twice a thousand world system, and thrice a thousand world system. That's true. But mainly inward introspection. Now here Buddha says, in this world, the I is a pleasant form and agreeable form in the world, in this world. It is here that this craving arises when it arises. It is here that it settles when it settles down. Where? In the I. Then in the ear, in the nose, in the tongue, in the body, in the mind. 6 sense bases, internal bases. Those are the places where craving arises. With the rising of the craving, dukkha arises. Where there is craving, there is dukkha. Now, then Buddha referring to the external bases. Forms are pleasant form and agreeable form. Forms. What that's external forms are. Forms are pleasant form and agreeable form in the world. It is here that this craving arises when it arises. It is here that it settles when it settles down. Then you see, form of form. Through the eyes, you see the form. That is what is called form of form. What is that form of form? You see, there are objects out there. When we see the object doesn't come to our eye. With the support of light, we take a picture. That is the image. Out there is the image. We take a picture which is the reflection. That is what is called bimba. The reflection is called pratibimba. Reflection, which is in the eye. That is how it comes to our eye. And it is reflecting in the most sensitive part in the eye, which is called pasada rup. Pasada. So, through the eye, we see the object that is called rupa, form of form. Likewise, in the ear, we have form of sound. In the nose, we have form of smell. In the tongue, we have form of taste. In the body, we have form of tangible. In the mind, we have form of mental object. Like that, there are 6 types of form. All forms are not physical, but mental. Those are the forms, friends. Those are the form aggregates. Those are the things to be understood. When we have these 6 type of forms, what happens? Then we feel. What we feel? We feel that form. Then we perceive. What do we perceive? What we feel. Then we start to think. That is what is called chetana. That is what is called volitional formations. all these are detected by consciousness. That is how these 5 aggregates are arising in the eye, in the ear, in the nose, in the tongue, in the body, and in the mind. Now we come to a very special discourse from Sutta Nipada, the collection of discourses, where one day a certain young man came to the Buddha and said, Bhante, I went to different places to meet different teachers. They taught me many things. He says, those who in the past explained things to me before my meeting with Gautama's Sasana, Gautama's teaching means the dispensations of the Buddha. He says, Bhante, before I came to you, I went to many different teachers. This is what they said. What did they say? I have used the Pali term, Pali verses also, if we need to understand further. But I don't want to read Pali by this time. He says, what the teacher said, such it was. That is what some teachers said. Such it was. That means things happened in the past. The teachers taught him what things happened in the past. And some others said, such it will be. Some other teachers said, what will happen in the future. So some teachers taught him something happened in the past. Some other teachers taught him what will happen in the future. He says all that was hearsay. What hearsay? All was an increase of thought. Increase of thought. Takka vaddana. Takka. It is good for logic. Logic. I don't like. I did not delight in it. He said, I don't like Bhante, such thought. I don't need past things or future things. That is the meaning. Declare to me the Dhamma, O Muni, O sage, O teacher, sage. Declare to me the Dhamma, the destruction of craving. What is that? What I want is how to destroy this craving. And further, having understood which, living mindfully, one can cross over attachment to the world. That is what he wanted, this young man. The Buddha said, the dispelling of desire and lust, understand this clearly, dispelling of desire and lust for pleasing and agreeable forms. What is that form? The form that we admire, the form that we grasp with our perception, that is the form which we have agreeable and pleasing nature. We grasp things as mine, I'm, and myself. Mine, me, and myself. With that form. That is what is called desire and lust. Now Buddha says, what you see, agreeable forms, pleasing and agreeable forms of what you see. Not only what you see, what you hear. Hear is a form. What you hear itself is a form. And sense means what you smell, what you taste, and what you tangible. All these forms, 5 different forms. The 6th one, cognize. What you cognize is a form. So the Buddha's point here is dispel the desire and lust for that particular form. For whatever has a place in nature, dispel it, abandon it, completely, totally cut it off, obliterate it. That's the teaching. Is the state of Nibbana. That is what is called Nibbana. That is what is called liberation. That is the teaching. That is what is called imperishable, everlasting peace, real bliss, Nibbana. So where is Nibbana? Should we go to other world to experience Nibbana? Should we wait until the next Buddha to come? No. It is to be practiced. Whether we are while we are walking, talking, working, sleeping, whatever we are doing, these things come to our mind. What are the things? 5 aggregates. When we experience 5 aggregates, what happens? We cling to that. We grasp it. We attach, then we grasp it, and then cling to it and bring in. That is what is called attachment, upadana. The English term doesn't give the right meaning. Upa means inside. Adana means bringing. You bring in and deposit it in your mind. Once you deposit it, what happens? It is a cause. Whatever the cause has its results. Result is what? Result is re-becoming, rebirth. Then you will have to re-becoming. You will have to be born somewhere. That is what is called jati. You are going to another existence. Bhava. It is because of your inclination, because of your attachment. Upadana pacha bhava, the Buddha said. That is what is happening. Then, that is what the Buddha said to this man. And finally, we want to understand another discourse, which is the seed discourse, Bija Sutta. Very important discourse to understand the nature of our mind, our consciousness. Consciousness never fly, never go or come or arising or perishing of the consciousness alone. There is no such consciousness. All this happen, whatever happens to our consciousness, it happens together with other factors. Other factors means other 4 factors of the 5 aggregates. Let's see Buddha's very words. Bhikkhus, there are these 5 kinds of seeds. What for? What 5? Root seeds, stem seeds, joint seeds, cutting seeds, and germ seeds. If these 5 kinds of seeds are unbroken, unspoiled, undamaged by wind and sun, fertile and securely planted, but there is no earth or water, whatever are the factors, but earth or water, if there is no earth or water, would these 5 kinds of seeds come to growth, increase and expansion? The monks replied, no, Venerable Sir. Then the Buddha said, if these 5 kinds of seeds are broken, now the seeds are broken, spoiled, damaged by wind and sun, and unfertile, not securely planted, but there is earth and water. Would these 5 kinds of seeds come to growth, increase and expansion? No, Venerable Sir, the monk said. Now, if these 5 kinds of seeds are unbroken, unspoiled, unbroken, unspoiled, undamaged by wind and sun, and fertile, securely planted, and there is earth and water. All conditions are there. Would these 5 kinds of seeds come to growth, increase and expansion? Yes, Venerable Sir, the monk said. Because the 4 stations of consciousness should be seen as like the earth element. 4 stations of consciousness. These are called Vijnana Thiti. What are the 4? First 4 aggregates are the 4 stations of consciousness. Delight and lust should be seen as like the water element. Consciousness together with its nutriment should be seen as like the 5 kinds of seeds. Consciousness bhikkhus, while standing, now please listen this carefully, understand this properly. Consciousness bhikkhus, consciousness while standing might stand engaged with form, without form. Form means not out there, inside, not this body, but mental. Engage with form, based upon form, established upon form, with a sprinkling of delight, it might come to growth, increase and expansion. O consciousness, while standing might stand engaged with feeling, either form or feeling, engage with perception, engage with volitional formations, based upon volitional formations, then established upon volitional formations with a sprinkling of delight. It might come to growth, increase and expansion. Finally, the Buddha said, because though someone might say, please understand this clearly, though someone might say, apart from form, apart from feeling, apart from perception, apart from volitional formations, I will make known the coming and going of consciousness. Coming and going of consciousness apart from form, feeling, perception and volitional formations. Without these 4. These are called stations of consciousness. These 4. If one says, I will appoint consciousness without this coming or going of consciousness, it's passing away of consciousness. Consciousness goes somewhere without other factors of the 5 aggregates, and rebirth without consciousness. It is growth, consciousness growth, increase and expansion, if someone says so. That is impossible. That is the Buddha's teaching. See, that is the Buddha's teaching. That means consciousness without the support of mentality and physicality does not exist. That is the meaning. Because if a bhikkhu has abandoned lust for the form element, with the abandoning of lust, the basis is cut off, there is none support for the establishing of consciousness or feeling, perception, volitional formation and consciousness. when that consciousness is unestablished, not coming to growth, non-generative, it is liberated. When the consciousness means vijnana, if the vijnana is unestablished where? Unestablished on the mentality and physicality. If there is no mentality and physicality, consciousness cannot exist any longer. That's the meaning here. When that consciousness is unestablished, not coming to growth, non-generative, it is liberated. What is liberated? Consciousness is liberated. From what it is liberated? From physicality and mentality. By being liberated, it is steady. By being steady, it is content. By being content, he is not agitated. Such a person is not agitated. Aparitassana. Being unagitated, he personally attains Nibbana. He then understands, destroyed is birth, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is no more for this state of coming. That is his realization. That is, friends, how a person becomes an enlightened person, a liberated person, an arahant. Let's understand these wonderful teachings of the Buddha. Let's understand clearly the difference between the two. 5 aggregates and 5 aggregates affected by clinging. 5 aggregates are all the time, constantly arising, passing in the 6 sense bases in all of us, all beings, even the arahants, even the Buddha. 5 aggregates are arising, passing. Those 5 aggregates are to be understood. If we cling to these 5 aggregates, that is what is called affected by clinging. If it is affected by clinging, what happens? Then we make a fetter to samsara. That fetter is called personality belief. The first fetter, sakkaya ditthi. Sakkaya means 5 aggregates. Ditthi means you cling to that. If we make that fetter, we are bound to samsara with one fetter. You know, there are 10 fetters. So, if we, whenever these 5 aggregates arise, if we are mindful, if we have clear comprehension, if we have wisdom, we can simply let it happen as it comes to negation, cessation. We let it happen. We do not grasp it. If we grasp it, that is called grasping. If we let it come to cease, that is what is called, it comes to the state of impermanence, anicca. Whatever is impermanence, if we grasp it, it is dukkha. If we let it happen, let it come and let it cease as it naturally is, then we can understand the 3 characteristics of existence right there. When we grasp what happens, we grasp it as mine, me and myself. That grasping is what is called craving, tanha. That tanha is to be understood as the cause of suffering. Then if we can completely cease that same tanha, same thirst in the same place, right there, Remainderless cessation of craving is the understanding and realization of Nibbana. So that means in the eye, through our eyes, we can understand the Four Noble Truths, dependent origination, and the three characteristics of existence. These are the fundamental teachings of the Buddha. Friends, let's all understand these wonderful teachings of the Buddha. Practice this in our daily life. Wherever we go, whatever we do, let's practice as far as we can. Then we can experience this real Dhamma here in this very world, and one day we can close our eyes peacefully. We can realize real peace, real happiness of Nibbana. May we all experience that real bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.